So a few months ago, I bought a P-Bass, but this was not a regular P-Bass, this wasn't a Fender P-Bass, this wasn't a Squier P-Bass, this wasn't a boutique P-Bass, this was a $50 P-Bass that I got off of wish.com. I made a video about it. A lot of people were just like, very informative, I enjoy this. And a lot more people were basically saying that I was a prude, that I was expecting too much from it, and that how dare I be so spoiled, so selfish to think that this isn't a good instrument, I guess. So was it worth it to buy that bass? No, not in the state that it was in. Is it worth it to upgrade it? That's what we're gonna find out today. So I sat down, thought to myself, what do we need to upgrade it? What would make it sound good? What would make it play good? I think that's the most important thing about all of this together. So I think for starters, we definitely need new pickups, new electronics all around, then a new bridge and new tuners. And I didn't want to spend too much money on this bass just because I wanted to be more realistic. If you're spending around $60 for a bass, you don't want to spend $300-400 in upgrades for it. So I was really trying to find each extra piece for under around $50. For both the tuners and the bridge, I decided to go with Wilkinson's. Now, Wilkinson is a brand where it's usually really cheap, but the quality is actually really good. I found the chrome tuners on eBay for $30 for the whole set, and then the chrome bridge with brass saddles for $13 on eBay. And both of these came with free shipping too. For the pickups, I wanted to go as vintage and flat as possible, so I decided on the Fender original P-Bass pickup that you can get on Amazon actually for around 60 bucks. And then for wiring, this is a really important step because you want something that'll sound good, that'll be good, and that won't be humming, buzzing in any weird way like that. So I decided to go with the Gun Street 51 style P-Bass harness. Now this goes for $42 on their website, but they graciously donated the wiring harness for this project, and I really do appreciate that. And the wiring harness was one of my favorite parts about this project, just because when you open the box, you just see this really clean and beautifully organized wiring harness that just looks fantastic. And it just looks like it's made of high quality parts, and you know there's been love and care put into it. So go ahead and check out the Gun Street guys over on their website and their socials below. I put them in the description, and really support them. They're just a small company here in the United States out of Oregon, and it's just two guys doing what they love and doing great things for musicians. And I wanted to do a black pickguard too for the upgrade on this bass, but luckily I have a black pickguard from my Fender Made in Mexico bass, and so I decided, you know what, I'll just throw that on there instead of buying a whole new one. So with all these parts totaled up together, we have $147. Not a whole lot, but let's see how far those can go for this whole project. So first things first was disassembling the entire bass pretty much, starting with the pickguard, all the electronics, and then going ahead and seeing what I would be able to do for this. So this is where we come to our first real snag of the evening. The pickguard doesn't fit at all. I don't know what made me think that it would. I mean, I knew that I would probably have to re-drill some screws, which is not a big deal, but really this did not fit in any way at all that would just look right. We're going back to the drawing board. We're taking the new wiring harness off. We're gonna paint the old pickguard that came with the bass original. And now I don't have any spray paint with me, so I just decided, hey, I have Plastidip, and this will really see if I really like the black, that's cool, but if I don't, what's cool about Plastidip is you put about 4 or 5 layers on it, and if you don't like it, you just go ahead and rip it off. So I installed the wiring harness back into the old pickguard that is now the color that I want, and it doesn't fit. The pots and the wiring that came with this originally were just tiny, minuscule, and the new pots that came with the Gun Street harness are the full size. So there's not enough room in the pocket itself, so that means I get to Dremel out some of the body. After a lot of dremeling to make sure that it's all good enough, I finally have enough room on this, and we could put the pickguard safely back in it, test it out, good to go. This was actually the simplest part, was taking the old bridge out and then putting the new bridge in. Now moving on to the neck, I felt the nut was actually pretty good, but this might be something that I go ahead and upgrade in the future. I felt the main problem lied with both the tuners and the bridge. So with the old tuners, I went ahead and popped them out super easy, and this is where things got a little more difficult than I thought. Turns out the Wilkinson tuners are way too big. Now they fit through the post and everything, but when you put them side by side, they eventually overlapped with each other, which is not good because then they can't lay flat against the headstock. So basically, this is a little different than what I was planning. Essentially, the holes for the posts themselves were too close together. This is where it gets a little weird. Instead of using the Wilkinson tuners that I had bought specifically for this project, I asked myself, what if the ones from my P-Bass that I have already are good enough? So I went ahead and took off 2 of them just to test it out, and sure enough, my old P-Bass tuners will just go straight in line with it, and these are just regular Fender made in Mexico ones that come with it. So now instead of using the Wilkinson tuners that I bought specifically for this project, we're just gonna be using standard Fender tuners instead, and I'm gonna use those Wilkinsons for my P-Bass and see how that works out. With the Fender tuners now installed and good to go, we put the body back with the neck, put it all together, string it up, and it works. Go ahead and make some adjustments to the intonation, including both the truss rod, which is a pain in the ass on this bass, and I hate it, and then also the bridge too with the saddles. Now with the sound comparisons, you can see that there's not actually a huge difference. Again, I like the pickups for the most part in the old bass, but with the new pickups, you can really see that they have a much more flat profile to them, and you get a nice, more rounded sound overall. Whether it be on the lowest of the low string or the highest fret of the high string, you get a nice equalization between everything. And also, between listening to both sound samples now, I can tell that there's this weird sort of mid-range boost, I think, with the old ones where it just sounds a little more tinny. And now the Fender ones sound way more natural too. And last but definitely not least, I decided to go at the neck with some 800 grit sandpaper. I would usually go with about 2000, but I'll finish it off with that. I'm gonna take off a lot of this neck so it doesn't feel like a baseball bat anymore. But overall, this was an interesting project. It's not by any means perfect, but I think with a good luthier, we can go ahead, give it a great setup. I can only do so much because I only have so much experience. Obviously, a lot of things did not go exactly the plan, but that's okay. That's just the way things happen in life. You just have to work around little kinks here and there. And I get new Wilkinsons on my old Fender, so that's fun. But let me know what you guys thought about this project altogether and whether this is interesting to y'all or not. But thank y'all so much for watching, as always, for sharing, for liking, subscribing, all that good stuff. If you like this video and want to see more like it, go ahead and subscribe. If you want to be like these beautiful people right over here and help support the channel, head over to my Patreon page for things like early access to videos, giveaways, and more. A huge shout out to the Gun Street Wiring Shop for hooking me up with the wiring harness for this. I really appreciate you guys, and again, definitely check them out too. But that's all I have for the day, and I'll see y'all next time.